Hey guys, welcome to the Kevin Stoda channel. And here's a picture of somebody, I don't know, it says Trump 2020. What do you think of that? Um, protect is what it should be saying. Uh, I want you to pay attention to what the Sierra Club recently wrote about Trump under cover of COVID 19. In an article by Paul Rauber, uh, we read Trump is using the pandemic to bail out his fossil fuel friends, and what's worse is put in some laws into the books that will take some work to get taken back out once Trump is kicked out of the White House. President Trump is famous for scorning anything connected to his predecessor, but he has heeded the advice of Barack Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, who once said, "You never want a serious crisis to go to waste." Yeah, they're using crisis, shock doctrine to change and transform America in ways that you're not paying attention to. Let me remind you, while the United States is reeling from the effect of deadly coronavirus, the Trump administration is taking advantage of distracted nation, that's us, to doggedly pursue pet policies, particularly those that benefit the fossil fuel industry and friend of the president. Two groups that have substantial overlap. In the administration of public lands, environmental regulation, and federal bailouts of foundering industries, Trump continues to punish his enemies and reward his backers whenever possible at our expense in ways that cannot be easily overturned should the ill-gotten person lose his next election in November. In late March, as the country started sheltering in place, the EPA officially rolled back um, its Obama era fuel efficiency standards for cars. Why? Nobody in the car industry was asking them to do so. Doing so was not on the industry's wish list. It appeared to be motivated more by Trump's desire to overturn what had been a centerpiece of Obama's response to the climate crisis. In other words, just jealousy. We are being really crapped on by jealousy these days, people. Why the hurry in the midst of the pandemic? Well, Trump knows that if he is not reelected in November and the Democrats take the Senate, the Congressional Review Act allows the next Congress to overturn any rule finalized within the previous 60 legislative days. That's why told Bill Clinton way back in the 90s, do not wait the last 60 days to change, put laws in the books or rules into place. Anyway, reversing earlier rules requires a lengthy rule making process. It's not as easy to get rid of rules that are over 60 days old when you're the new Congress in January. That political calculation has been at work in Trump's management of public lands and also for the benefit of his friends at the fossil fuel industry. They are trying to push through as many of these changes as they can so that they don't run the risk of being overturned immediately once Congress is turned, says Aaron Weiss, Deputy Director of the Center for Western Priorities. Yes, we have some priorities here, and destroying our air and environment is not one of them. The center has been cataloging pandemic sneak-arounds by the Interior Department. By late May, it had counted 74 damaging actions since Trump signed the first coronavirus emergency bill on March 6th, most involving efforts by Interior Secretary David Bernhardt, a former oil and gas lobbyist, to make even more public lands available for drilling. The Trump administration moved forward with these actions despite pleas from senators in the West that the agencies within the Department of Interior should be focused on how to bolster the response to COVID 19 in communities across America, not pushing through policies with limited public input and almost no public support. Um, in short, Trump continues to punish his enemies and reward his backers whenever possible in ways that cannot be easily overturned should he lose the election in November. So, in New Mexico, for example, the Bureau of Land Management expedited new oil and gas leases near Chaco Cultural National Heritage Park or Historical Park a site of great cultural and religious significance for the region's Native American communities and one of the most beautiful places in the United States. If you've never been there, I really loved it. I want to take my family back there sometime. While the Navajo Nation was being hammered by the coronavirus, its per capita infection rate surpassed New York's, remember, and New Jersey's. BLM acting chief William Perry Pendley refused to extend the project's public comment period, offering instead 4 virtual public meetings in a region with limited internet access. Native Americans are contacting and dying from coronavirus at an alarming rate, said a statement from Representative Paul Grijalva, an Arizona Democrat who's the chair of the House Committee on Natural Resources. The Trump administration should be working to make sure they have the resources they need to stop the deaths from COVID-19, not keep drilling at record paces across the United States. Many of the rollbacks and revisions jammed through under cover of COVID-19 by the EPA administrator and former coal lobbyist Andrew Wheeler have been intended to prop up the dying coal industry. The agency refused to tighten regulations on the fine particulate matter or soot that is emitted from the smokestacks of coal burning plants across the United States, even when a Harvard study showed that an increase in deaths occurred from COVID-19 in areas with sooty air. In other words, Trump's out killing people. In April, the EPA lowered emission standards for 4 coal plants in Pennsylvania and West Virginia so that they could burn cheap, low-quality coal and emit more toxic air pollution into the atmosphere. The agency is rushing to rewrite a 2012 rule that limited the amount of neurotoxic mercury and other poisons that power plants can emit. Oh, yes, we need more mercury in the air, Donald Trump. The irony of Trump's administration's forging ahead with favors for the fossil fuel industry during the pandemic is that one of the pandemic's earliest victims was the fossil fuel industry itself. In spring, scores of tankers were moored off the nation's coast. The only place left to store the oil no one was using as travel, etc., ground to a halt across the world. This glut, combined with the price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia, has all but devastated the U.S. fracking industry. Praise the Lord for that. Similarly, reduced demand for non-residential electricity has KO'd the already staggering coal industry. One desperate coal exec even suggested rebranding the stuff as carbon ore. Okay, we won't call it coal anymore, we'll call it carbon ore. Trump was ready to ride to the rescue. We will never let the great U.S. oil and gas industry down, he tweeted on April 21. After considering a number of options, including paying U.S. oil producers to keep it in the ground, his administration settled on letting the industry tap $200 million from the Main Street lending program to pay off debts incurred long before the virus appeared. So they could borrow the money to pay off debts that were many years old, not having to do with the virus. Where's the oversight, people? Oversight means get that guy out of the office now. Don't even wait to the election. He goes to jail. The coal industry also lined up for a bailout and asked to be freed from responsibility for payments to miners with black lung disease. 3 coal companies with connections to the Trump administration scored a total of $28 million from a fund Congress approved for aiding small businesses. $10 million for Hallador Energy Company, which hired disgraced former EPA administrator Scott Pruitt a little while ago as a lobbyist. $10 million for Rhino Resource Partners, whose former Chief Trump nominated to head the Federal Mine and Safety Health Administration. And $8.4 million for Ramaco Resources, whose CEO sits on Trump's National Council of Coal. No amount of cash injections, however, can save these dying patients, they're dinosaurs, whom this terrible pandemic may finally finish off. We wish. In the meantime, let's go over how EPA is running amok and how Sierra Club and others are trying to work against it. This is a Trump Watch. Trump Watch. Despite the coronavirus outbreak, the Trump administration speeds up wall construction on the U.S.-Mexican border at this time. The Environmental Protection Agency stops enforcing environmental regulations for polluting industries during the pandemic. This is why Trump wants the pandemic to last as long as possible, huh? Trump's EPA wants to allow more fine particulate air pollution, soot, even though it appears to be a key factor in killing people with COVID-19. The Sierra Club's environmental law program and partners did win a major court victory against Keystone XL Pipeline and other oil and gas pipelines regarding crossing rivers, streams, and wetlands. But in revising the Waters of the United States rule, the EPA drastically narrows the scope of the Clean Water Act. These are things that have been around for 50 years, people. America, don't let this happen on your watch. You've got your grandkids to worry about. You've got yourself to worry about. The EPA also loosens regulations on mercury and other toxic emissions, like the mercury, in a way that will make it difficult to tighten them after the election. The Sierra Club and other organizations have challenged the EPA's plan to allow dirty industrial plants in Texas to pollute neighboring communities during the startup, shutdown, and plant malfunctions. They want to pollute poor neighborhoods mostly. The Trump administration rolls back Obama clean air car standards, allowing cars and trucks to emit 900 million more tons of greenhouse gases over their lifetime. I could cry. The Sierra Club and others join states in challenging the rollback. Of course, we're challenging this in court. Amid an enormous oil glut, Trump orders the Department of Energy to buy 30 million barrels of domestic crude oil for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I guess it's a good deal when it was minus $30 or something. I hope they bought it at that rate. And anyway, I hope that you guys are doing okay and you're getting ready to change things. We need a progressive country. We need to protect the environment for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and for ourselves, especially during COVID-19. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need to have better health care. You get involved whatever way you can. In the meantime, thank you for letting me share my articles that I'm reading and I think that are important for this 2020. And I'm encouraging you to make a change throughout this decade to make this country and world a better place. Give this channel, the Kevin Stoda channel, a thumbs up, please. And also subscribe. And we'll talk again later. God bless you.